Hello everyone, welcome to Kroll's Emerging Threat Weekly Briefing for the 16th of March 2026. My name is Ryan Hicks, and speaking with me today is Mark Messer and Ethan Afuri from the Threat Intelligence team. So on screen you can see what we're covering this week. So without further ado, start off with Patch Tuesday. So Microsoft's March Patch Tuesday included security updates for 79 new Microsoft CVEs, addressing vulnerabilities across Windows, Office, SQL Server, .NET, Azure, Hyper-V, and many more. Two vulnerabilities were publicly disclosed prior to patch availability, which are in the top left there. So CVE 2026-21262, which is an SQL Server elevation of privilege vulnerability, as well as CVE 2026-26127, and that's a .NET denial of service vulnerability. Both of these, again, publicly disclosed prior to patches, so increasing really the likelihood of rapid adoption once kind of exploit code is shared and circulated. There are also several notable critical vulnerabilities. So the CVE 2026-26110 and 26113, and that's Microsoft Office remote code execution. And this is exploitable via the preview pane, so kind of increasing phishing risk. And then the second one as notable here is CVE 2026-26144, affecting Microsoft Excel as an information disclosure vulnerability. So those are the kind of highlights for Patch Tuesday. So next up, first here, looking at Cisco Talos reporting on an actor they named a UAT 9244, or a Chinese Nexus threat cluster, overlapping with other groups in this campaign seen targeting South American telecom providers, and they noted the activity was since 2024. The group noted to deploy 3 implants, previously kind of not reported widely, across various operating systems. So the first being Turndor, which is Windows backdoor, delivered via DLL sideloading using wsprint.exe, and also persists using scheduled tasks and the registry run keys. There's also peer time, also known as Angry Peer, which is for Linux and uses BitTorrents for command and control, as well as sort of additional payload distribution. And then lastly, in the tool side was Brute Entry reported on, which is a Go-based brute force scanner, which is installed on edge devices into what is known as operational relay boxes. And that's then used for brute forcing Tomcat, PostgreSQL, and SSH. There are reported overlaps in patterns of activity with Salt Typhoon, sort of their previous observed behaviors. However, at this time, kind of no confirmed or technical connection between the groups at this time, although kind of similar activity. So it's kind of noted as a new threat cluster at this time, certainly by Cisco. And then next here, looking, so BlueVoyant observed actors carrying out what has previously been observed technique, so where they were inundating targets with spam phishing emails, then the actors posing as IT via Teams, Microsoft Teams messages, and they were coercing employees into launching a quick assist session. The actors then used DLL sideloading to deliver a new A0 backdoor payload. The backdoor fingerprints host uses the kind of interesting side of this, using DNS queries for coerce C2, embedding commands in MX records, attempting to kind of be more covert in the command and control. Researchers who kind of identified that had moderate to high level of confidence that the actors TTPs built on earlier tradecraft associated with the now disbanded Black Basta ecosystem, so potentially kind of actors that have dispersed from that particular group. And at the same time, kind of there were, as mentioned, kind of some newly introduced capabilities, particularly with the DNS MX base C2 and A0 backdoor being kind of a new payload being observed. Key recommendations, really kind of looking at that sort of social engineering at the start. So not allowing kind of external messages from outbound other tenants into kind of internal teams is kind of key for that kind of initial social engineering, as well as restricting quick assist, which is a tool publicly available. So restricting access to that from executing or installing if not required internally as a legitimate tool. So kind of two kind of big kind of recommendations there to kind of halt or reduce the risk of this particular threat. Next, Mark.
Thank you, Ryan. The U.S. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency has observed exploitation of a recent 9.9 CVSS severity bug in N8N, an open source workflow automation platform. The product is used by consumers, enterprises, and government organizations, and nearly half of N8N's users are thought to be vulnerable. Officially tracked as an improper control of dynamically managed code resources vulnerability by NIST, authenticated users may be able to craft requests which are improperly evaluated, allowing arbitrary code to be executed on the hosting system with the inherited privileges of the N8N process. In simpler terms, a low-privileged user can abuse the bug to remotely execute arbitrary commands. Successful exploitation of the vulnerability may lead to full compromise of the affected interface, including unauthorized access to sensitive data, modification of workflows, and execution of system-level operations. Versions affected are those starting with 0.211.0 prior to 1.120.4, 1.121.1, and 1.122.0. Per N8N's security advisory, users are strongly advised to upgrade to version 1.122.0 or later, which introduces additional safeguards to restrict expression evaluation. If upgrading is not immediately possible, administrators should consider the following temporary mitigations. Limit workflow creation and editing permissions to fully trusted users only, and or deploy N8N in a hardened environment with restricted operating system privileges and network access to reduce the impact of exploitation. These workarounds do not fully eliminate the risk and should only be used as short-term measures. Thank you, and back to you, Ryan.
Thanks, Mark. Finally, Ethan.
Thanks, Ryan. Bush security researchers have identified a new social engineering technique called InstallFix, in which threat actors create convincing clones of legitimate installation pages for widely used developer tools and insert malicious install commands. The campaign targeted Anthropic's Claude code and popular AI command line coding assistant. Attackers hosted near identical copies of the tool's installation page on lookalike domains and promoted them through Google Ads, causing the pages to appear at the top of search results for queries such as Claude code install and Claude CLI. When users copied and executed the malicious install command, it triggered a staged process that ultimately delivered the Amatera stealer malware, capable of harvesting browser credentials, session tokens, and other sensitive data. The InstallFix campaign demonstrates the continued effectiveness of click-fix-style attacks that rely on users copying and pasting commands, combined with malvertising techniques that exploit trust in search results and familiar tools. To reduce risk, organizations should consider blocking sponsored results and enforcing allow-listed sources for developer tooling, distributing packages through internal repositories where possible. Security teams should also monitor for scripted downloads, execution patterns, protect sensitive credentials using secret managers and short-lived tokens, and promote user awareness so employees remain cautious when copying commands from unverified web pages. Broadcom, Symantec, and partners report that Seedworm, also known as MuddyWater, linked to Iran's military intelligence service, has maintained access within multiple U.S. organizations since early February. The group deployed backdoors, including DinDoor and FakeSet, to establish persistence and support follow-on operations. The activity aligns with heightened regional tensions and reflects Seedworm's previous tradecraft targeting U.S. critical sectors. The campaign's extended dwell time in the selection of targets, financial, aviation, and software, raised concerns that the activity may be staging for additional cyber operations. Organizations in these sectors are encouraged to review the Seedworm IOCs and TTPs outlined in the report and strengthen remote access pathways commonly exploited by the group. This includes validating MFA on remote access, auditing VPN identity and PowerShell logging, segmenting critical networks, and reviewing supplier access to aviation and financial environments. Organizations should also apply network egress controls and monitor for anomalous DNS and HTTPS patterns consistent with known Seedworm command and control activity. Thank you, Ryan.
Thanks, Ethan. And that's all we have for this week. If you have any questions, please contact us at cti@crow.com. Thank you and see you next week.